Yeah.
Now, if no one minds, William Southward has come over from County Wexford and he's going to make a sort of bit of a recording for the benefit, I suppose, of the trustee. Hello, Niamh.
Hi, Ted, how are you?
For the benefit of the trustees, may I introduce you, Humphrey? This is Humphrey Lynch. He is one of the board of trustees that the late Olive Lady Ardelon set up in 1925 when she gave her estate to the people of Macroom. Although the trustees should be added, the trustees did not get this property for nothing. They paid, maybe it was a nominal sum, but they paid, for 1925 they paid a fair figure. And while Humphrey's living, this trust is safe. But remember, trusts are funny things. Trusts are funny things. I'd also like to introduce the company to our town mayor, Peter. Thank you so much for coming. No. Peter O'Leary, much beloved academic and historian. I want to introduce our town mayor, Con Foley, who has been very supportive of the whole area of heritage, and has been always a good friend of the environmental group. In the hungrier days back in the early 80s, Con would have been very supportive. Now, I suppose we would start off today by recalling that Macroom's more ancient name was Ahi de Burcon. It was one of the very active druidic centres of Munster. We know that in the exact position of the town hall grew a great tree that gives the town its name. The modern name of this town is MACRCM, the plain of the gnarled oak, though possibly it was one of the Cron villas, one of the sacred oaks. If you remember the culture on the island, before the Normans came, families were named after trees. So St. Colman, the patron saint of the Lee Valley, he's called after the hazel, Col. Colman was a tribe that worshipped the hazel tree. The hazel was one of the 7 sacred trees of the Brehon laws. So Macroom takes its name from an ancient oak that stood on the square. Another thing that would be, of course, important is that if you look at a map of Munster, Macroom is a frontier town. Now, I know Humphrey would say that we're well into West Cork, which we are. Macroom would have been a very important place in those earlier years, because whoever held Macroom held the main passage to Kerry and held Macroom guards the wilderness. Look at a map. From here west and from here north was impenetrable. We still had wild Kerry cattle and Drimmen and Bowreoch in this area in the early 1800s. That tells us that there were still ancient post-glacial cattle and sheep in the mountains running royal. Now, I'm so glad we have such a good gathering here, because we do have a choice how we spend our time. That's very, very important. Let's not lose that choice. It strikes me that we're all living multiple existences at this time. Things seem to be speeded up. One school of thought suggests that since the tsunami and the major loss of axis of the Earth, we've moved into a different subtle time zone. People are very busy out there at this time. Have you noticed? In America, very, very busy. I mean, America's extremely busy. community.
Fast pace.
Very fast pace. And in the 26 years I'm here, life has really speeded up, Humphrey. Is that time already? Is it that time already? So I just wrote down here, friends from the north of Ireland, Stuart and Anne-Marie McMurdo. They said something the other day and I wrote it down. We can let ourselves have the choice how we spend our time. And it's wonderful that we all found that time to come today. It's a very, very busy world. This gate, I'll be giving out John Lyons' historical brochure at the end of the walk. But this gate was a very psychological gate. This gate guarded a politically secure compound. This was the seat of the crown for a huge area around here. The walls were much higher, incidentally. From descriptions, the walls were much higher. It's very possible that this wall at the back here was part of the town hall. Now, I'd remind those of us present, do we have Tomosa Scanlon here? No. I'd remind those of us present that a lot of our words that we're using in English are Indo-Germanic. The word town comes from the word tuin, a walled garden. So the first towns were walled gardens where we had our medicinal herbs and so forth. And of course Macroom would have been walled after the O'Flynn's. The O'Flynn's were the earliest tribal peoples of this valley. The correct name for Muscree is Muscree O'Flynn, the fair lands of the O'Flynn's. Now, when the Normans arrived in 1169, they began to come in from Carnsore Point and cross the country. The Lynches, they're French Normans. The Condons, the Boyles, the Barrys, the Burkes, the Fitzgeralds, the Fitzjohns, the Fitzdavids, the Fitzpatricks, and so forth. They all began to come into the country, and with their movement westwards, the McCarthys were shifted, and the Clonakilty families were shifted, so that we found families moving west. I suppose I'm thinking of two microcosms. The first microcosm is the parish of Eve Leary, Inchiquila parish. It could be any parish in Ireland. Its history, how it evolved, its 118 townlands, and so forth. Now in Ireland we've got 62,635 townlands. They're very, very ancient boundaries. They were family boundaries. So the family that only held the half acre, they were the end of their name. But the family that held the hundreds and hundreds of acres of Shehy Mountain, they would have been a large family. Do you see how it worked out? Now townlands made up parishes. When St. Patrick came here and set up the primitive or the early church, no townlands were changed. Boundaries were not changed. He had an existing system of tribal territories to develop the church. Would I be correct there, Peter? There's no evidence that Patrick upset the ancient land holdings. So I recommend to everyone, if they're interested in discovering a primitive landscape, get your townland's name and get it translated. I'm able to tell you that the strawberry tree, the arbutus, that grows natively in Killarney, occurred all the way up the west coast of Donegal. Look at the townland's names. Catnia is the Irish for arbutus, and you find townlands incorporating the name arbutus all the way to Sligo, Leitrim, and Donegal. So townlands would be very important. When we wander on a bit, Humphrey, are you going to wear the chain?
Oh, yeah.
Lawrence was doing pictures of the great houses.
Yeah.
That would have been in the 1890s.
Really? Wow, it's a nice picture.
And we can discover where the castle door was, as Humphrey reminds us. We can discover from the castle door because there was a huge beech avenue. You can still see the remnant beech avenue. And the castle door was exactly on line with that beech avenue. Now last year the theme was avenues. And beech would have been a very popular avenue. It was an English tree brought by the Cromwellians, is the beech tree. Yeah, Peter?
Ted?
Out here. Again, the beech avenue is exactly on line, and the door of the castle was connected by a line, as you'll see there, of lovely Irish yew trees. Would have been a native tree. And of course the yew reminds us that when the Normans came with their longbows, and later they were called the yeomanry, the yeomanry. The yew men was the yeomanry. And up to that period, yew was a very important timber for the sake of the bows and arrows. Yew was the important timber. We ourselves, the indigenous people, knew that because we knew the toxicity of the yew. It's known that we dipped our arrowheads into a quotient of the yew tree. Very, very toxic tree. Its Latin name, Taxol, reminds us of that. Now, since 1925, when Lady Ardelon gave her estate, she gave her domain, her estate, her ward estate, to the people of Macroom and appointed trustees in 1925. I think she died the same year. What's relevant there is she married Arthur Guinness. The next time you're drinking a pint of stout, this was the seat of the Ardelons. This was the seat of the Guinness family. The most senior Guinness was Ardelon, Lord Ardelon. And he was given the title because he was so generous to the poor of the city of Dublin. He created St. Stephen's Green as a place for the poor of the city of Dublin. And I have a lot of different stories on Ardelon. She was very famously known for her generosity. And reminding me of another statement I'd like to make, and that is, I suppose generosity marked the Ardelons. Now, how did the Ardelons come into possession of Macroom? And we have to go back to County Berkshire, for the male lineal ancestor of this house. If you remember, when Cromwell came over to the country, he finally subjugated the country. By 1662, 22,000 English planters had settled in these baronies west of Cork City. 1641, we know that 5,000 Protestant English families were settled here. By 1641, by 1601, 5,000. By 1641, 22,000. So the numbers began to pile up. But where were the Irish going? And a very, very interesting statement I find here. And I'll read it out to you. Richard White, in May of 1652, shipped 7,000 men in batches from Limerick and Bantry to the King of Poland. There is no record that any Irish ever came home. Lord Muskerry was allowed march under his own colours out of the town of Macroom, and they left from Bantry and went to Poland. The King of Spain got 35,000 men from Moscow.